I want to open this by warning you guys about two things. Firstly, the Attack on Titan movie is pretty terrible. I won't say don't see it, but I will say don't see it sober or alone. You're going to want to make fun of this thing. Secondly, there are going to be some manga spoilers in this video past the end of the first season, specifically to do with the Clash of the Titans arc, but there'll be an annotation to skip past that when it comes up. Don't blame me, I just talk about what's in the OP. It's all Wit Studios' fault for putting it in there in the first place. Yes, Wit Studio, not Production IG, because IG was the second unit team on this one. Sorry, Asakura YT and Digibro, I let you and the rest of the world down. I made a pretty bold claim last episode in saying that Jiyuu no Tsubasa is better than Gurren no Yumiya. Now it's time to back it up. Unlike the first OP, this one starts on a wholly triumphant note, with soaring music and visuals to match. The first image we see is of the hole in Wall Rose plugged, an intentional contrast with the way the first OP started on a wall being broken apart. If that symbolism wasn't on the nose enough, we see a flock of doves cresting over Wall Rose and then look out over the Survey Corps as they scatter into long-distance scouting formation for their first mission into the Titan-infested territory between the walls. This sweeping shot of the plains is grand and inspiring, a perfect match for the anthem playing behind it. The camera movement is smooth and measured, and the shot composition is simple, with only one prominent object in frame at a time, if there's any at all. Things are going to plan, for once. The Corps shoots off green flares to signal the start of the mission, and then in an instant everything becomes jumbled and chaotic. Even the music comes down, from triumphant orchestral sounds to violent electric guitar chords. Trees rush by much more quickly, giving way to a cluster of houses that fill the once empty screen, and finally we see the female Titan stalking the Corps from behind a windmill. She cuts an imposing figure, silhouetted against the sun and baring her teeth menacingly, although she's gone almost as soon as we see her, leaving us blinded by the sun. In a lot of ways, this reflects her first appearance in the anime. She shows up seemingly out of nowhere, throws the Survey Corps expedition into chaos, and then disappears as soon as they think they have her. There's nothing particularly mind-blowing about this next segment, but it does showcase some tight, impressive editing. As the pace of the song ratchets up, so does the speed of the cuts, and as a result the movement gets much more erratic, but the superimposed image of Aaron's determined face shows he's not fumbling or panicking. It's also remarkable just how easy it is to understand what's happening despite it going by in a blur. Sword is drawn, maneuverable gear is fired, jets kick off, and Aaron disappears from his horse's back in the blink of an eye. It gallops off in a panic, and then he jets out, skimming along the ground and ready to fight. This fast cut impresses upon us just how quickly the Survey Corps can spring into action, and cutting between the panicking horse and its master's precise movements helps to emphasize their control of the situation even when everything goes wrong. It also provides a convenient motion on which to cut to this next shot of the series' minor characters looking out over the battlefield. But let's go back and pause for a moment on these dead trees, which both serve to create a sense of desolation in contrast with the lush greenery of the previous shots, and also to set up a motif that will continue for the rest of the OP. Again, in contrast with the first OP's equivalent scene, this shot of the group goes by very quickly and is full of visual details. In the background shot, it's extremely impressive that you can recognize each character from the silhouette alone. Chalk one up to good character design, and it's impressive how fluid the animation is on their clothes and the hair blowing in the wind. In the foreground, we see close-ups on each minor trainee in the Survey Corps, and I think almost all of you who've watched the series will pick up on one detail here. Annie, who's not even supposed to be out here as a member of the military police, very purposefully turns to face away from the rest of the soldiers, a pretty clear symbol of her betrayal. I remember watching this OP the very first time it aired and thinking to myself, well, I don't know what the deal is with that Lady Titan, but she's definitely Big Nose Girl. I'm not so great with names. What you might not pick up on is what the movement tells us about the rest of the trainees. And you might not want to pick up on that, so click this annotation or skip to the time mentioned in the description to avoid manga spoilers. We good? We good. Jean, Sasha, and Connie all stare resolutely forward, their loyalty assured. Ymir closes her eyes, an action mirrored by Krista, who then moves as though to turn around. The implication is that Ymir is taking the same action. Krista and Ymir both turn around after some deliberation, signifying their wavering loyalties to humanity, which of course comes up in the comic. The shot then fades directly between Reiner and Bertholdt, and since they're the only characters shown without a gap between them, it's safe to assume this signifies a connection between them. They're also definitely moving to turn around like Annie, which makes sense because they're Annie's Titan Shifter allies, the Armored and Colossal Titan respectively. This information had already been revealed in the manga at the time the show started airing, so it was definitely an intentional nod on the part of Wit Studio. With those spoilers out of the way, the OP does a bit more work to make you feel a subtle unease, namely as we pan back into Annie's head and presumably presumably her mind, we see an expansive darkness and desolation. Subtle. We see a fleeting image of a hand grasping at something. The hand is probably Eren's on account of all the blood and it being underwater, and then we see Mikasa's fist clenched around whatever it is. I really like this image, and it's obviously a reference to something, but I can't for the life of me remember what it might be, so if you know, leave a comment telling me what it is and saying how dumb I am, or reassuring me that I'm still smart. Either way, thanks. Mikasa's attention is grabbed by something out of the window, and we see Eren adrift beneath the water, a look of weary calm on his face, a reference to him lying in the ruined sewers before going to fight Annie. This is another shot the OP comes back to, and speaking of those, we see more dead tree branches behind him. In this shot, I believe these represent Eren entering the same headspace as Annie before they fight. The crisscrossing branches also look like veins, perhaps in reference to the more graphic aspects of the Titan transformations. From here, we jump to my favorite part of the whole OP. As blood literally rains down around him, Armin stands calmly, setting his mind to work. As his eyes open, we get a glimpse inside, seeing hundreds of candles burning brightly, representing his various trains of thought. But the instant he decisively shifts his focus, all but one are snuffed out, and that thought has his full attention. This isn't the most complex or impressive shot, but it is a very concise visual metaphor for how Armin's brilliant mind works. Unfortunately, his decisiveness comes a fraction of a second too late. An eye flashes open, and in the desolate mindscape behind it, a crow flaps its wings and a Titan transformation bursts forth. This is the moment when they confront Annie in the city and she transforms. The eye is probably hers, but since it's blue, it could also be Eren's, opening to the truth about her. Of course, the transformation causes widespread devastation in the city, which eventually cuts into more general scenes of soldiers fighting Titans. There's a lot of shots here that are really well composed, but I just want to take a second to appreciate this one image of Titan Annie reflected in the water. Her inverse position and indistinct figure contrasts with the previous shot of a soldier, and this angle lets us see her towering over the buildings while also giving a sense that something's not right with her, what with the distortions and the reflection on the water. This montage brings us to a Titan squaring off against a soldier, but his head is blocked out by a crack in what turns out to be the lens of Zoe's glasses. It's not entirely clear what the cause of the break is, but obscuring one eye hints that she's a little unbalanced and crazy, cracked if you will, and the position of the crack informs us of her singular focus on studying Titans, which is reinforced by the reflection in her working lens. We get another take on the soaring 3D gear shot, and while it's not as striking as the money shot from the first LP, it's still very exciting and gives brief snapshots of each Survey Corps senior's personality. They move in formation to capture the female Titan, and we see the special target capture weapon unleash its load of spiked cables. This is the first of many shots highlighting the Survey Corps' equipment. It's definitely cool to see this gear up close, and I'm sure very helpful to aspiring cosplayers, but what I like most about these shots is how they present the credits. You can probably tell by now I'm a sucker for OPs that make the credits feel like part of the world, and this one does that a lot. Not only is this a great way to get viewers to read the credits, it also makes them feel like a cohesive part of the OP rather than a tacked-on afterthought. It's also a sign that your animators care about details when they do things like make credits react to the camera shifting focus. Once the tech porn is out of the way, Levi drops down to help us cut a to the finale. Superimposed against Erwin's steady glare, we see the Survey Corps insignia displayed proudly for an instant before it splits into two birds, one black and one white. This image speaks to duality between the Titans and humanity, between good and evil, and between what the Survey Corps does on the surface and behind the scenes. Again, we see the female Titan, and then Armin and Mikasa with the mysterious soldier, probably Annie again, framed between them. On closer inspection, the light silhouetting her is an archway, not unlike the entrance to the sewers where she was cornered and finally revealed herself. Eren's eyes flash open and he transforms to fight Annie in her Titan form. There's not a lot of meaning here, it just kinda kicks ass, a torrent of powerful images of broken rock and glass and flesh leading to this final clash. The debris Eren tears apart creates the impression of eyelids opening, reinforcing the idea that Eren is finally seeing Annie for what she is, and in a flash we see her eye staring back at us, then the Titan and human version of Eren's eyes as they move to sync up, and hold up a second, I sure am talking an awful lot about eyes here. That's probably because that's another consistent motif throughout the OP. Wit makes it so that you can always catch vital information by following the character's eyes, which allows them to throw a lot of stuff at you without it being overwhelming. Anywho, aside from a final flashy group shot, that's pretty much it, save for this last image of the chains around the wall being broken, yet another triumphant, dare I say, hopeful image to close us out. In terms of sheer volume of stuff on screen, Jiyuu no Tsubasa handily outpaces its predecessor. I mean, just look at how long this video is compared to the last one. Attack on Titan's second OP is simply filled with more, mostly better shots that contain more hidden details. It's also a lot better paced. While nothing here is quite as exciting as Gurren no Yumiya's money shot, the climax to this OP is strong enough, and it actually comes at the end where it belongs. Now, which song is better is obviously a matter of preference, but if you look at the composition of the actual OPs, there's no contest. Jiyuu no Tsubasa is the better opening. Now, dance like puppets for me and argue in the comments about it. You know, if you want to. Also, maybe toss a like my way if you agree, or if you respectfully disagree, but like the video anyway. That's cool too. You can subscribe and follow me on Facebook or Twitter to catch the next one, which will be covering the opening to Shiki because Halloween, and while you're waiting on that, check out my recap of the summer season. As always, this is professional shitbag Jeff Thew signing out from my mother's basement.